Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to kick off this new week with a new theme. This one being drumming up support, which is just a fun little play on words there. It's just a drum focused week. Hopefully check out some really fantastic drum work this week. We're going to be kicking it off with something from Katatonia. Looking at their 2006 album, The Great Cold Distance, we're looking at the track In the White. Let's dive in, see what Katatonia is bringing to the table today. All those little ghost notes, starting off really strong, being a great pick for the week. Fun accents too on that snare. Great atmosphere on the guitar. It has a nice bit of momentum to it, but it's also not too interested in going anywhere. It's not happy where it is, but it's definitely being weighed down to stay in one place. Those fast legato runs on the guitar, just prior to this, that was nice. That little ornamental thing. Oh, it's actually bouncing back and forth. Oh, yeah. It's just a massive tone. Very haunting and eerie with that melody. See those little fast legato lines? Oh, so we have the legato lines over here, but we have some arpeggiation over here. It's a really nice combo. Bass pushing forward in the middle.
Not so far from a try. This is not our last goodbye. So I had a green light. I was lost in the city lights. Not so far from a try. This is not our last goodbye.
Yeah, some fun syncopated ride cymbal stuff. It's interesting keeping this light guitar work under. I'm pretty sure it was under that heavier riff. So it wasn't so much of like a jarring jump back and forth, it's more like a lifting of the veil to see what was beneath it, behind it.
So clear, I would have
there's that. But there's actually a second part to it. I wonder if it's going to come in while we can hear it clearly. No. But there's actually a really cool companion idea to that, where instead of just bum bum bow, it was ba da ba da ba 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 da bow, and it was panning back and forth, alternating two different instruments. Very cool idea, and I kind of wish it had come up there at the end, but I understand it would have been too driving to represent the ending of a song. Yeah, I enjoyed that. We haven't heard Katatonia in a while, but I think generally I've been pretty receptive to them, especially their later work when they got away from the doom metal and started to explore doomier rock sounds. And I guess something like this I'd probably classify as alternative rock, which is right up my alley, honestly. Just not even just the sound of the song, which it is. I really enjoyed a lot of what they're doing here, but also the genre. Alt rock is something that I generally enjoy. So if the rest of the album's like this, I'll have to check that out. It's a short album too, 50 minutes. This is towards the end of the album, but it's one of the more popular songs. Alright, let's get into some analysis. Let's dig into why this is so cool. First of all, it is drum week. I want to touch on these drums. Yeah, just really great semi-melodic drumming. It is drumming that exists within a core pattern, a core loop, especially in the verse, which I think is where the drums are the most exploratory, though we did see something pretty cool in the bridge. But it's primarily focused on ever-changing snare accents with some ghost notes in between those accented hits and some nice syncopated ideas very lightly on the cymbals to juxtapose what we're doing on the snare. It creates something that's very light and driving, but I think mysterious. For me at least, it was tough to get a handle on what the drums were doing. Part of that's just because I've only had one chance to listen to them, while I was also trying to figure out everything else that's going on in the music. It probably makes sense after a couple listens. Probably not that difficult to get into because I think it is only a 4-bar phrase. But it is interesting. We get a hit on like 2 and 4, and then after that it's kind of open. We get some on the ands of beats, we get some on odd beats, we get 1 per bar, sometimes we'll get 2 per bar, then we also have the ghost note hits between some of these. It becomes a bit more linear, a bit more expressive, rather than primarily aiming to create a beat, to be that human metronome, which is why I say it's semi-melodic, because it doesn't necessarily lean into being that metronome, but it also is a shorter idea that is very rhythmic based, more so than playing with the entire kit, as if each part of the kit were a different note. So, like I said, it's still rhythmic at its heart, even if it's not necessarily keeping the beats as well as a standard drum pattern would. But I absolutely love it. It is, like I said, it's driving enough to push us through some of these lighter verses, but it's also light and dexterous enough to kind of create this this element of mystery to the song. Then we get into the chorus. This is a bit more large and bombastic. It has some neat rhythms to it, but nothing that really stood out to me. Mostly we get some cool syncopated hits that make it super groovy, which is kind of cool that they use syncopation at the beginning to create a type of a mysterious feeling, not really being able to anticipate when any of the hits come on. And then here we use syncopation to create something very groovy that you can move your body to, that you can rely on. But the bridge, I think, was the next part that really caught my ear, and it's some really nice cymbal work. We have a pretty standard beat coming on with the bass kick and the snare drum, but it's the cymbal work that really sells this to me. The first half of it, I think, is offbeat hi-hat hits where the hi-hat starts closed and then they hit it. Well, it's like partially closed. They hit it and then it opens up. And so you kind of have this swell on the hi-hat. And then we go from that to this cool, dancey, syncopated ride cymbal work. And it's just very cool how these rhythms play off of what the band is doing, but also the rest of the drum kit. And it's a very energetic part of the song. And it does so with a type of a lightness rather than like high intensity. Most of the cymbal work here isn't heavy-handed. It has very light attacks to it, and it's, like I said, it presents sort of a dexterity rather than a strength of this motion. I think that's very cool, and it kind of keeps that lighter mood while allowing us to have a bit more momentum in this bridge to push through to hit the outro and wrap the song up. Yeah, the drumming's just solid from start to finish. Definitely a bit more personality based. You don't hear drumming like this all the time, and it draws me to the song. It's one of the things that makes me want to dig into more Katatonia, maybe just this album, though I know that they've had a few different sounds. But this song in particular, I'm like, yeah, the drumming here is solid. But it's not the only thing that stands out to me either. We have great atmosphere on this. Whether it is the verse, which is a bit lighter in energy, like I mentioned, there's enough momentum to feel like we're moving, but it's also kind of stuck where it is. It's not a song that's happy to fully explore this realm. It feels like it's being dragged into here, and the momentum is an attempt to escape, but the song doesn't allow it to. There's a weight that keeps it in this moodier atmosphere. And it's created with a lot of space. There's a lot of instruments going on. We have the bass, we have a couple different guitar lines, we have the piano, we have the drums, we have the vocal melody, but none of them are really large. We have a lot of not necessarily staccato notes, but shorter notes to create space in an idea. With the guitar, we have these really tight, might even be palm muting in some of the places, just really heavy attack with a quick fade off of the reverb. We have a piano in here. It's like dink, dink, dink. Again, I don't know if it's any type of muting. Maybe it's just something as simple as not holding down the sustain pedal. And then doing some production stuff to make it even more of an aggressive drop off in the the decay of the sounds. But everything in here is sparsely played. We don't have and I don't think there's any instrument that holds a note out. It's all quarter notes with quick decay of sound on them. And so it's sort of this twinkling of all these instruments. They're all placed in different areas of the sound sphere, and none of them are holding sounds out. It's quick little notes here and there. And the instruments are also placed pretty far apart from each other. We'll see eventually in the chorus that it's not actually that big of a sound sphere. As far as metal goes and rock, it is a bit, tighter as a sound sphere. This is pretty typical for the type of music. It doesn't have that expansive sound that high fidelity electronic music or even live symphony, live orchestras would have. But I do feel it's a little larger than rock typically has. Rock can feel very claustrophobic at times, just really tight compressed production. And here it's a bit larger than that, and they use that space between the instruments to create more of this emptiness in this verse. And I think that's very cool. It creates something that feels isolating, lonely, solemn, gloomy, but the momentum of all this, all the moving parts, feel like we're trying to escape it. There's just something that drags us down. That's what the verse says to me, and it's done through creating all this space. And I think that's where the chorus has a ton of impact, because its atmosphere is massive. We did get away from some of that gloominess, but now it's just a heavy weight. I talked about how large of a sound these guitars are. It's just a massive tone. It feels humongous. And it goes out quite a bit too. It isn't just that they're filling the sound sphere, but it does feel like the sound exists a little bit further from my ears. I bet this chorus sounds phenomenal on open back headphones or speaker systems with the volume cranked up a bit. because it even sounds a bit expansive on my closed headphones. So, but the thing is that it sells the size. It really does, and part of that may be the contrast. Maybe if we contrast this to some post metal, maybe something like the ocean, it might sound small comparatively, but we were in the verse with a lot of sparseness of ideas, a lot of space, and then moving to this where we get notes just held out, and these massive tones, and there's just no space in here at all. It's the exact opposite, and it just feels large, partly because of the production, partly because of the composition, and partly because of that contrast. It makes it hit really hard. Now, I think the other thing, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but what stands out to me is the layering on this. I really love it. We don't get too much of it in the first verse. We explore a little bit of it more in the second. We hear a ton of it by the end of the song. It feels like every time we revisit a more spacious section, we add more layers to it. Still not in a way that creates anything overbearing, not like we would hear in that chorus, but enough to continuously grow these sections. And again, it's little ideas, couple of notes here and there. Even there at the end, that bing, 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 bing. That's one of those little light ornamental ideas that just show up in here. I think the only thing of any size or weight in here, majority of the time, is the bass. It is a rather large, wide, blunt tone. It's almost a little too muddy for my likes, especially for what it's doing, but I can hear its moving parts, so it's good enough. They're going for a specific tone, and it is clear enough to hear, so I say that's a win. But yeah, it's a wide tone. It sits on the bottom and acts as a bit of a floor for all these other twinkly ideas to happen. But like I mentioned, we have piano, we have guitars, even the vocals. There's a few parts where it's held out notes, but the vocals also play around with some sparser ideas too. And all of this ends up working together to fill in the space of each other's ideas. If the guitar, well, even that one part I was talking about, that bum, 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 we had another instrument fill in the space between them. Bum, 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 and creating a little bit of extra movement by interlocking two different instruments. And of course, you know, the panning comes into that too, hearing the sound bounce back and forth, cool production stuff. But the idea is that we had one idea, and then we socketed another idea into the blank areas of that first. And we see this on so many levels here. Like I said, we start off with just a couple of instruments, and then we find out where there's space, and we put another instrument in there. We find out where there's still space, we put another instrument in there. And every time we come back to one of these sparse sections, we're adding more layers, we're filling more of this space. It's what makes it feel a bit heavier by the end of the track, whereas at the beginning it was very sparse and lonely. But it never really gets rid of that mood, and that gloominess is ever present. And it's never like it feels like we filled out the sound completely, like when we went to the chorus. And I think that's a very fine line to walk, to feel like we're filling it up, but never for it to feel full. Speaking of atmosphere, that chorus melody is eerie and spooky. There are a couple of really key half-step note movements, usually moving in a downward direction, that the vocals do, and as soon as they hit that note, it goes from something that feels gloomy to something that feels eerie and spooky, and then it shifts back to the gloominess before, you know, a couple notes later we have another one of these very key moments. It's a single note that just really creates a bit of dread to the whole thing. I think it's interesting that they decided to mix those in, and I'm curious what the lyrics are that would allow those moments to have the impact, hopefully, that they do. And I think that's going to be about it. Drum work, layering, composition, and atmosphere. I mean, that's everything that this song is to me, other than the fact that it's just a very straightforward alt rock track. I really think this is rather palatable. It's a bit less in your face than I think alt rock typically goes, but it has the right vibe for it. And as far as rock goes, like I said, it's a very palatable sound. So I like that. It's something that's presented to me that I'm familiar with and pushes in some directions that I don't get to hear too often. And I really enjoy when bands do that. Take something familiar and transform it into something that isn't. Let's dive into the lyrics for this and then we'll wrap the video up. Now, I'm not 100% sure of my interpretation here, but I believe it's about someone who relies on someone else to pull them out of a depression. We have the idea that I found you in the white. It says, to overcome this, I've become one with the quiet cold of late November. If you don't see, I'll remain unseen until there's time to be remembered. So if you don't see me, no one's going to see me. And the idea of becoming one with the quiet cold of late November, to me, feels like a type of sorrow. Late November, I mean, that's fall. We're only a few weeks away from winter. We're definitely looking at decay in nature. Leaves already falling. So, also the idea of a quiet cold. We often see that snow in general is used for more negative emotional feelings. So yeah, I don't know what it says. It says to overcome this, I become one with the quiet cold of late November. I don't know what we're overcoming at this point. But later on it says, so I found you, found a way through all the quiet cold of inner darkness, and now that you're here, it becomes so clear I have waited for you always. So like I said, I think it's about feeling better when you're around someone and hoping that they want to be around you. But there are a couple of stanzas that I don't know how to interpret alongside that. We do have what I think is the chorus. I believe this is the large bombastic part. It says, so I had a green light. I was lost in city lights, not so far from a try. This is not our last goodbye. I don't know. That one's completely gone over me. And then this stanza that kicks off the whole song, but we also see later on as the penultimate stanza, says, are you in or are you out? The words are stones in my mouth. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Truth comes down, strike me in the eye. I don't know. That one I can't seem to fit into my understanding of this either. So, as far as the song goes, my ideas of feeling lost, feeling alone, and finding someone who sees you and feeling better through them, I think that fits the song's feelings of loneliness and isolation, the gloominess that we see. I'm not too sure about the eerie element I pick up in the bridge, though. It's really the only place that it shows up strongly, and I have no idea what the lyrics are about there to figure out why we might have moved into that harmonic direction. But I think the layering up of ideas works really well because by the end of the song, we are singing about having found a way through the darkness, and now that you're here, everything makes sense. And we have more layers in that final section of the song, which feels less isolating than the first part, which was really sparse when we kicked the song off. Still gloomy, but a little less alone here. And I think that's a pretty cool parallel that we see between the music and the words. But like I said, there's a lot in there that I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how to interpret this. So, as usual, these are just my thoughts on Katatonia's In the White. What are yours? Do you have anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspective on this track. Please put all of that down in the comments section. Above the comments in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.